Okay, my outstanding friends, everything is coming together just like a snowball putting it together. It's just incredible. I've been working on the body because of my Mudfossil research, finding that bones had turned to stone. They don't turn to white bones in the Mudfossil process. It is different, and I had to study so much about this. I had to learn the chemistry, the invasiveness of it, nucleophilic substitution and nucleosynthesis, and how enzymes create unbelievable amounts of chemistry within fractions of a second, where that same chemistry would happen, but it would take sometimes billions of years to actually do it. But with the enzymes that are created by the bacteria, done. And the enzyme continues to do that over and over. The enzyme isn't expended at that point. It's what I have learned in the last 15 years. I wish I could go back and start it over again, because wow, every day is just like waking up to a bowl of ice cream. And everybody's looking into this stuff big time now. Aging, how the body works with all of the compounds in it. They're talking about the CBDs and the THC and all of the stuff that's in cannabis. So all the things we've always just said, no, that's illegal. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. And even the FMT, it's illegal. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. But the main thing I want to tell you about today is the fascia. If you miss this, you're missing everything. Because you eventually will be like me and almost become immobile. I'm not kidding you. It happened to me. I literally was walking. It's because I'm going to explain the whole situation to you. It's very simple, and it's very easy, and it's calming, and it's soothing, and it's a form of exercise, improves sleep. Not only that, it's mobility. All of that stuff is a big package. It's not one little piece, oh, you do this over here and everything's fine. No. You got to do this here, which affects literally everything down the line. And in my world, bacteria starts everything. But then, once everything's constructed and built correctly and facilitated with the correct chemistry from the bacteria enzymes, you got to use it. You got to move it. You got to stretch it. Okay, this has really never been understood, I don't think. Yoga, they say, improves your sleep, and it improves everything about your body. Yoga is basically like, stretching around and moving this and that and breathing, regularly. And it never seemed to have much of a, I'm a scientist person, I'm a material guy. So what does that do for you? Show me the evidence of what that does. Tell me why, if I do those things, I am going to feel better, and I'm going to sleep better, I'm going to do all that stuff. And now I have discovered, yeah, that's right. And it's way right. And it's way not understood, I don't believe. And here's the thing. See, they're talking about yoga and exercise and sleep. Well, then they go into this, which is my area. Ligaments, tendons, the fascia, muscle, the attachments, the abrupt transitions, where the tendons lock into the bones. All of those things lead to flexibility and fluidity in your body. It's fluids. You're built as a big bag of fluids. And they're in little tubes. And if you don't move them, the tubes harden up. And then when you go to stretch them, they hurt like hell. And I'm going to tell you, I know this as a fact. Yeah, I'm going through this. But now I fixed myself. I'm virtually pain-free now. So, and it didn't take long. It doesn't take long at all. But you got to do it right. If you do it wrong, you injure yourself. All right, let's talk about this. All right. These are mud fossils. Everybody who knows me knows I do the mud fossils. And the bones did not stay white like that little tiny piece that's still left is white. They transitioned into stone. Now, this is basically that type of a bone right there. And then the fibula, you got a tibia, which is the main part, and then you got the fibula right here attaches to there, and that has a tendon coming down. They have tendons wrapping around these bones, and the tendon is just like a rubber band. I mean, literally, it's a rubber band, and it pulls that together. You cut that tendon, you're gonna fall apart. You just fall apart. The tendon is under tension. A ligament attaches one bone to another set of bones, and so does the tendon, but the ligaments are a little bit different there, but they're basically the same thing. Now, the reason I got in, here goes. All right, so this is what they claim yoga can do. It improves your breathing, because you're working with that a little bit, decreases stress, improves heart health, that's a biggie, they claim, improves mood. Well, anytime you're feeling better, your mood is better. Reduces chronic pain. 100% true about that one. That I can attest to 100% certainty. Because trust me, I was in a very serious condition of immobility from not stretching, which is yoga. Now I'll explain exactly to you. I understand this stuff very, very well now. I worked with a guy, Gil Hadley, who is the fascia expert of the world as far as I'm concerned, for many years. I'm going to show you, he gave a speech called the fuzz speech. And that's what they thought all this fascia was, just fuzz. It was nothing. I just throw it away. And I said, Gil, I'm finding in my mud fossils the fascia, and then there's this layer in here which is it's just a big layer of fluid in between. And now he does autopsies all the time. He's a PhD, all that kind of stuff, and he does anatomical disassembly basically, and sees where all the nerves go. I would call that gross anatomy, not gross being nasty, gross meaning the bigger picture. Now, I go down into the cellular structure, into as deep inside as you can go. Because everything is chemical. Everything is a chemical reaction. I don't care what anybody says. There's zero that happens in your body that is not a chemical reaction. It's the chemistry 100%. And the only way the chemistry can work fast enough is to have an enzyme, because they can do billions of times faster than if you didn't have the enzyme. And they just do it, boom, they just keep going. Now, where did the enzyme come from? A very, very huge, gigantic molecule of fabulously intricate DNA and RNA and all those things together, and it hits something, goes, boop, done. Where if it didn't have that thing would do the same thing, but it would take 1 billion years, some of that stuff. And ATP, which is the thing in your body that makes the most energy, it would take literally forever to create the energy that you need, and you need it in buckets. So ATP, I forget, it's tryptophase. There's GTP and there's ATP. I'm really getting deep into this now. The GTP is the tryptophase. Anytime you hear A's on the end of something, it means it's an enzyme. What is an enzyme? An enzyme is a really sophisticated molecule, does a ton of work, just like that. So the GTP creates what I would call the electrolyte in your body. And what is an electrolyte? What it does is it separates charges, it allows charges to transfer, it creates polarities, it's an electrical fluid. It's called GTP. As far as I can determine, that's what it is. And it's only created because you have a bacteria that creates GTP, which is the tryptophase, which is it's a electrical conduit throughout your body. That's all I can tell you. And the ATP creates the energy to work with the GTP. Both of those have to work, and they both have to be, you need a certain enzyme to do each one of those. Or well, I know you need a certain exact enzyme to create each one of those. They're not going to happen unless you have that enzyme. And the enzyme is only created if you have the bacteria. So it could be that both of those could be in jeopardy at the same time. They may be from two different little strains of the same bacteria, but if you hit it with an antibiotic and it kills those strains, you're done. Your tryptophase goes, and both of those tryptophases, which is the GTP and the ATP, and then you're going to be in. That could very well be these things they call it long COVID. You just never get back better, because COVID, I do believe, attacks I know it kills some of the bacteria in your body, and they're not taking bacterial tests and swabs. What they should do is find out what bacteria you have in your body. What are you missing when you have long COVID? I'm going to tell you one thing right now, there's no question whatsoever. You're either going to be missing them, or you're going to have too much of something. And you probably have both. So your tryptophases will be down to almost nothing, and your other bad bacteria are going to be floating around here, just living life large inside you while you're dying. You see, this came in today's same stuff. Life with long COVID is comparable to Parkinson's and stroke. Those things are related also to missing enzymes. You have all the correct enzymes in your body, and all of the chemistry is going to be good. Now, that's part one. Part two is making the equipment keep running. Your fingers, your toes, your eyes, your arms, your muscles. Everything has to keep doing what it was made to do, or it just stops and it gets tightened up. And that's what happened to me. I was so tight, I couldn't lift my leg off the floor hardly to put my socks on. And by stretching and very, very gently, that's the key. You got to start with just barely moving. I'm going to go into what Gil and I discussed years and years ago. And he's the nicest guy I ever met. He was willing to talk to me when nobody would. All right, this is going to be fun. I haven't gone back through this for years, because this goes back years. This was 16 years ago. Gil did the fuzz speech about fascia. And at that time, it was just totally, they didn't really know anything about it. They just thought it was like padding between your skin and the muscles. That was it, just padding. No big deal. Well, no, big deal. Okay, without these cadavers that are donated, people give their bodies to science, Gil would not be able to do this work. Now, I'm just going to let it play. Here goes. Now, this is the fuzz speech. It's GilHadley.com. You should go up and Somonaut is what he's under. Now, this is the fuzz speech.
Good. Yeah, we're good? Yeah. So, here's the thing about the fuzz. I'm going to try and do it in count. Okay. So, we've seen the fuzz. You can see it now. I'll put it in over my voice. The fuzz yields to my fingertip. Sometimes I come across a stronger, thicker strand that doesn't yield to my fingertip.
All right, did you understand what he just said? He's running his finger across that, and it just should split apart, basically. And it just sort of be flexible. He told me, he said he found people, he go like that, and he couldn't move it. And he had to cut it with an actual knife, scalpel.
That represents older fuzz sometimes, or maybe it represents the nerve. But each night when you go to sleep, the interfaces between your muscles grow fuzz, potentially. And in the morning, when you wake up and you stretch, the fuzz melts. We melt the fuzz. That stiff feeling you have is the solidifying of your tissues. The sliding surfaces aren't sliding anymore. There's fuzz growing in between them. You need to stretch. Every cat in the world gets up in the morning and it stretches its body and it melts the fuzz in the same way that the fuzz melted when I passed my finger through it. When you're moving, it's as if you're passing your finger through the fuzz, just like I did on the cadaver form here. So you have to stretch and move and use your body in order to melt that fuzz that's building up between the sliding surfaces of your musculature. The sliding surface, those shiny white surfaces of the rectus femoris sliding against the vastus intermedialis. So these sliding surfaces are all over your body, and the fuzz is all over your body, and as you move, you melt the fuzz. Now what happens if you get an injury? Aha! My shoulder! My shoulder is stiff now. I'm holding my shoulder. I go to bed. I wake up in the morning. I don't stretch my shoulder. I'm afraid it hurts. So I'm walking around like this. Last night's fuzz doesn't get melted. I go to bed. I sleep some more. Now I have 2 nights fuzz built up. Now 2 nights fuzz is more fuzz than 1 night's fuzz. What if I have a week's fuzz or a month's fuzz? Now those fuzz fibers start lining up and intertwining and intertwangling, and all of a sudden you have thicker fibers forming. You start to have an inhibition of the potential for movement there. It's no longer simply a matter of going, stretch. Now you need some work. Now you might need to do a more systematic exploration of that place to restore the original movement that you lost. And usually this is the case. We have a temporary injury, then we restore our movement. But sometimes we call this aging, the buildup of fuzz amongst the sliding surfaces of our bodies so that our motion becomes limited, the limit cycles become introduced into our normal full range of motion, and we start to walk around like this. We're all fuzzed over, our body.
That's exactly what happened to me. I'm not kidding you. I couldn't reach up, straighten my arm up over my body like this. I couldn't go like that. Got to get to about here, and you have to have a full range of motion, and you should do something like this. Hold on, here they are. Get yourself a couple of little, just these like 2-pounders, and just make sure that you use every single possible way of moving them, and fully extended. You know, you got to move. There's so many intricate muscle exchanges. As I studied, I couldn't believe it. And you really need to make every one of those, the fuzz, fluidy. All right, so this is the bottom line. When he's working on these cadavers, and he can move that fuzz out of the way, he knows that guy was flexible. But if he can't move it, he knows it's not. Listen, I'll let him explain it.
Represents time. The easier it is for me to pass my finger through the fuzz, the less amount of time it's been there. If I gotta whip out my scalpel to dig my way through one otherwise sliding surface and another, you know that that's been building up for a long time. So you can actually see time in fuzz. That's the fuzz speech.
A lot of that is aging. A lot of that is for you just don't move the way you used to. But it's not important to me, and this is my opinion. It's just strictly an opinion. Is the really hard movement, quick. Now, then you can cause trouble. I think it's just not good to, no real abrupt and heavy duty things going on. When you're younger, that's different. You're building muscle, but I think that catches up with you too. I really don't know about that end of it. All I do know is I'm at the other end of it, and I got to keep myself fluid, and I'm doing it. And it's very, very simple to do, and it's very enjoyable actually. All right, now I have to read you this because this is ultra important. So he's saying the things build up over time. Once they get stiff, you got to bring it back. Now, here's what he's saying about the fuzz. This is Gill, his comment. He says, the fuzz is in fact a generally very wet sliding membrane. It goes back and forth like this, and a lot of them. And that I now call perifascia. That's his word he made up for this, perifascia. And that anatomists generally call loose areolar connective tissue. They just think there's an areolar holes all through it and it's just sort of floppy and that's it. Fuzz. Now he says, I call it a fascia properly understood because it is an aggregate of connective tissues. It's not just the fuzz. These are aggregates of connective tissues. Listen to this. That covers and wraps and is dissectable in sheets. It's this stuff right here. Every one of these is a sheet. But the one thing they didn't know about was the fluid-filled highway. It was in the middle of these sheets. And that's where you get your immune system. So anyway, I got a hold of Gil. I said, can we talk about this? He said, oh yeah, sure, let's talk about it. And he was very, very helpful. And I don't want to put any words in his mouth, but I don't think he's ever said that I was wrong about anything. I was showing him the stuff and asking him questions about it. He didn't really respond in a fully like, oh yes, this is you're right, everybody's wrong. No. He just answered my questions about what he found when he was working with these things. I mean, he's doing a job that the others are just speculating. They're not in there cutting people apart. And that's what he does. Now, this goes back 16 years ago. All right. And then after we talked for several years, he did another one called Reconsidering the Fuzz. I'll tell you, this guy is one of the most fabulous people you would ever engage with. Gil Hadley, he's PhD, and this is the International Fascia Congress. This goes to 2012, and this is Reconsidering the Fuzz. Fascia, this is the world together here talking about this because it's starting to be investigated. And he is so engaging and such a wonderful guy to talk to. He's funny too. Now, here it goes.
Increase your tolerance for pleasure, folks. Because I guarantee you all have a really high tolerance for pain. Right? We brag about our pain to each other. Our clients come into us week after week and month after month, and we swim in pain. But wouldn't you be scandalized if people came in and just started going off on their pleasure? There was against that in some states. So normal fuzz, normal fuzz. We're going to have normal and abnormal fuzz now. Normal fuzz is a filmy, loose, areolar connective tissue. You know what it looks like. It's thin in depth with omnidirectional fibers. Limited or no fatty deposition. You will find fatty deposition in filmy fascia. You'll find it all the time. But it'll never bulk up the same way the superficial fascia will, or the subserosal fascia. It's often found.
I just want to make one mention. Obviously, he's given some words here to you guys, and I don't even understand some of those words either. But he's talking about different layers, the superficial, anyway, I'll let them go. Don't worry about the high-tech words. They mean very little. Let me just come back here, so.
But it'll never bulk up the same way the superficial fascia will, or the subserosal fascia. It's often found, not always, it's often found between superficial fascia and deep and muscle and in many muscular interfaces.
That's the fuzz.
Relative movement tendencies, and we've seen this demonstrated in the most gorgeous way in prior films. What good fuzz does in health, it enables optimal functional range of motion within and between layers. Tom gives, I got stills from what I'm going to give you credit for, this most fabulous demonstration of the Chinese handcuffs. You know those little things you play with when you're a kid, you stick your fingers in and you go, you can't get them out. So there's the web. So this filmy fascia has a range of motion. It's not so great that your skin drops down and falls around your ankles. This is good. So it locks out at a certain point, at which point you taught me a year or two ago that it then can conduct the forces alternately. So there's some optimal range of motion in it. Diffuses, limits, and redirects vectors of mechanical stress. So the fuzz does stop you from moving, right? But even when it's normal, because it doesn't have an infinite range of motion, but also it enables movement. Because if it were pathological fuzz, it would disable your motion, right? It's serious here. Yeah, exactly. That's what what we're going for here. It's not to have better sex here, it's to have better sex here. Right? So that we can enjoy our whole form in a way that's life-giving, that's fulfilling, that does enable us to feel the pulsing in our spines, that enables us to have this movement give us pleasure as our birthright. So, and I see this, you know those little batteries when you shake the battery inside of a flashlight, and you go shake, 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 so it's like powerless thing to put in your kit phone. And you don't need a battery because it has like a little magnet in there and it goes through a copper coil, and you shake the flashlight, and then you turn it on and you have light, right? It's a way of powering a flashlight. I think we're doing that. Again, it's a rank speculation. But how about, I mean, you don't see the birds, they fly from here to South America and back. What about us?
He was just talking about a little generator inside of a flashlight. So there's no battery. You just shake it and the magnet and generates electricity and puts it in a little capacitor, and then you can use the light. Now, he's talking about in us. If you don't jiggle that stuff at all, it doesn't transfer any energy. There's no energy transfer. And at a certain point, it loses the ability to transfer the energy. But maybe if you just jiggle it a little bit every day, and the key is when you work your fascia, it's got to be a very slow process. I pull my legs back up to my chest, land on my back, pull my legs back up to my chest as far as I can get them. But I don't do it fast. I do it slow. Now I can do it kind of faster, but in the beginning, I would get to almost like I'd go like this, and I would get sharp pains. You get the sharp pains, you're done. You just damage yourself. You have to go so slow, and I mean, I'm talking about an inch in a couple of, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, an inch. You can't just go and everything's going to be fine. No. Not if you're starting out with a really locked up fascia system. You have to just barely move it. And then just do that. And then just hold that position. And pull with your arms. Your muscles and everything will get stronger in your arms. It's resistance. Because your legs are going to resist you from pulling them back. And your muscles in your arms are going to have to get better to pull them up. Very, very easy to understand once you understand what he understands is all these layers. They have to slide among each other. That's the key.
Maybe we're part of our system for generating energy in our body is the movement of that muscle form through the sheathing. Maybe the tendon is an energy generator. I don't know. I'm just thinking about this. Sensational. I know it's sensational because I feel it. And emotional, how is not our form a representation of our emotional state? It absolutely is. So this all boils down to how you feel about it. And are you willing to go there? So your use of your body, your willingness to move is utterly dependent upon your emotional state. There's not that many people who are willing to do this. So we're in a movement rut in the way that we behave towards one another, aren't we? Because you're going to have me arrested if I keep this up. The fact of the matter is the forms of movement that we permit ourselves to demonstrate within are very culturally controlled, aren't they? So that's not how you act towards people. You just connect with people in a certain way, and if you go outside of the range of motion of normal social interaction, there's 100 different ways that's censored in a certain environment. The consequence of that is we don't actually ever experience the range of motion that's available to us, and we create weird neural ruts. So we don't dance on stage at all.
Fabulous guy. Now, this is about Gil. This is from anatomy trainers. This is a very sophisticated anatomy, All right, this is anatomy trains. And this is basically about fascia, the same thing, balancing the diaphragms in your body, the different separations. anatomy, structural integrity, integration, and these are all the people doing all this fascia research. They're doing dissections, looking at this stuff, and they learn from just keep looking deeper and deeper. This is the guy that's talking about. I'm going to show you what he wrote about Gill, and I guess he's one of the top guys there is. All right, this is from that Anatomy Trains. And he's writing, Tom Myers is writing about Gill and how exceptional he is at doing what he does. And he went to see him at Portland. I suppose that's Portland, Oregon. Anyway, Gil Hedley's Somatic Dives, he went there, start here to get a sense of Gill. And there are many YouTube videos, and the full catalog of his work and schedule is at www.gilhedley.com. You can go there, sign up, and he's got, you can actually contribute, and it's good something to contribute to him, because he's really getting people to understand life and how your body reacts. And a lot of the things that they give you is some drug to mask the pain. I don't see that as a big benefit, because it gets worse and worse. You don't get better unless you work with the equipment you have and keep it lubricated, basically, and keep it stretching and moving and flexible, where he can move it apart with his fingers instead of having to scalpel it. And that's the case. And Gill was on a nationwide tour. He went to all the states, and I think he went up into Canada too. Every month he was moving through us all around the world. All around the country. But the initial observation insight has sent him on this 20-year journey, and the nature of adhesions. That's when an adhesion would be when your layers don't move. They're supposed to be good. And let me show you something. Here, look at this. That's what's called synovial fluid. Well, guess what the coefficient of friction is? Listen to this. I don't know if you can see that. That's the coefficient of friction of synovial joints in humans. You see Teflon on Teflon right above it? This stuff is 1,000 times slipperier than Teflon on Teflon. You got ice on ice and all these things. They're not even close. Synovial fluid is the most fluid there is. And that's what we're talking about inside the fascia. And when he's talking about limiting distances, there's a ball and then there's a strap. The strap can flex a little bit. The ball is an anchor. So this flexes until it can't flex anymore. That's the limit. And I can see all these things in my mud fossils. See, this is the part they didn't understand. The interstitium. Scientists say they've discovered a new human organ. Interstitium was right there under our noses and skin all along, but it took a new way of examining tissues to figure it out. That's the interstitium layer. That's the fluid-filled highway. By the time they ever did any autopsies and so forth, they drained the bodies of the fluids so they could get in there. Otherwise, you're working on a bag of gooey blood and stuff everywhere. So this was gone. So they thought this was just one big plate. And it is not. And of course you can see this much better because this is from a giant creature. That's the other thing that nobody wanted to talk to me, because I was showing evidence that I had proof of this stuff. Now this goes back to 2018. So now they just came out with this NBC News. They say we found a new human organ. Scientists said in a study published Tuesday they may have stumbled on a previously unknown organ, one of the biggest in the human body. One could significantly advance our understanding of cancer and many other diseases. Exactly, because that fluid-filled highway is where all of your enzymes and all of your immunities, not all of them, but that's the vast fluid-filled stuff that anything tries to get through it kills them. Once you break through the membrane and you get down below to stage 1, 2, 3, 4 cancer, and then you hit that layer, and if you can go through that layer, you get into the good flesh. And if it starts growing there, it's tough to get rid of. They try to irradiate it, they try to give you all kind of drugs to kill it, but once it is in and living in your good flesh, it's hard to get out. All right, here's how they explain it. This is no one saw the in-between spaces. This is this. Because the way scientists traditionally examine human tissue, they slice it and treating it with chemicals then drains away all the fluids. Interstitial tissues handled that way throw off all their fluids. They just become flat like a collapsed building. So all you would see if this had been treated by what they normally do, all of that stuff would be gone, and you'd see layer after layer after layer after layer after layer. All that fluids would be gone. The fluid-filled highway would no longer exist. And that is where your immune system is. And they don't understand this yet. They talk about spreading of cancer through that. It's not the spreading of cancer. That interstitial fluid, well, let me just read it to you what they say. 2015, doctors peer inside the body found that something strange when they were using a new technology. Forget about that. Let me just go back to something else here. All right, this goes way back. I wrote this paper about fascia-facilitated fossilization, how these things fossilize so exactly perfectly. But in addition to that, I brought up some points that nobody had ever considered. I said fascia was thought to be mere packing material, fuzz, virtually inert, no function other than to be padding. It has long been ignored as a subject of research. Recently, however, there has been new equipment allows viewing of the fascia as it does its job. So they had a little tiny camera they put in there. I think I talked about that before. Once again, in many experiments, there was totally unexpected results. Fascia is a tubular, fluid-filled fabric network. Covers everything. Instantly reconfigures itself when it's damaged or pulled apart. It just seems to hook back together. It appears as if a fiber optic wired network is redirecting the broken fibers. They're going to get broken. You got to redirect those fibers to come up to do their job. It does it all by itself. Even when they cut you into doing this stuff, you just cut into that fascia. Those are the things that send your signals through your body. The nervous system is part of the fascia, basically. And I believe it all works through the fluid-filled highway, which is the lymphatic system. And that's where all the lymph fluid flows through your body, has all these enzymes. So the fiber optic network is redirecting the broken fiber somehow, all by itself. I believe fascia is the fiber optic style network in creatures as it connects to every cell. When I say fascia, in this point, I'm talking about the electrolyte that's in there, in that fascia. So the fascia electrolyte in those fiber optic style networks connects to every cell in your body, all your impulses, so you can do this and that, and so you can see. I mean, the amount of wiring to do the job a human body does, it's just impossible to consider. Otherwise, it has to be in some kind of fiber optic network. That's my opinion. I believe fascia is the fiber optic style network in creatures as it connects to every single cell. It touches every cell in your body. And it's a complete system. That's why it's the biggest organ in the human body now. I feel this is logically the wiring for send and receive communications. It appears fascia may be much more than simple fuzz. And I talk to people, this is Werner Klinger over at the University of Ulm. They did some excellent work to try to mitigate injuries. But they did give me some good information about how tattoo fluids float around the body and they collect in the fascia of organs and everything else, and they could never figure that out. Why is it moving? Then the doctors took that and said, well, that's how cancer moves through the body. No, that is not how cancer moves through the body. It's possible. I can't say it's 100% no, but I can tell you this right now. If you don't have the correct enzyme and the correct chemistry in one section of your fascia, it's not going to be anywhere else either. It's going to be invaded here, going to be invaded here, it's going to be invaded here. Once it gets into you and it really takes over, that means you have no defense to it. And that stuff just breaks through any kind of membrane it can break through. That's how cancer spreads. It just gets worse and worse and worse because you never could attack it with the enzymes. This is very important. This is huge to understand. Now, and I contacted everybody about this. This is 2015. And then they started to look into this a little bit, I guess. What I can see is, well, I'll show you. Now, if this doesn't blow your mind is unblowable. This is this new layer that they discovered, the fluid-filled highway. It's the interstitium. It's the membrane that separates your good vital flesh from your protective fascia. This is like skin. And once you break through this layer here, you get down in there. That's where you get all the stuff. You scrape these things all day long. You can scratch that off. Just nothing happens. You get down here, you got the issues. The guys immediately send troops in there to kill everything that's trying to invade you. And I can prove this, what I'm saying. I can prove this from my mud fossils. And they have seen this actually happen with the new photography techniques they have. But the point I want to make right now is every single muscle, every single tendon, every single bone, every single organ, even your whole body, your skin, is just nothing but a bag of this layer. Now let me show you something that should shock you. If you look at how many little bits and pieces you have of you sliding against each other, look at this. Every little piece of you has to slide. Every little muscle has to slide against the other muscles. Look at the muscles right there. That's why I say when you're moving your arms and your shoulders, it's just a couple pounds. Don't do it when it hurts. You know, do it without any weight if it hurts. But just do it very slowly, relax. That's the key to everything. And your back is, that's the, hold on a second. Let me show you the back. Yikes. Well, everything is yikes. I don't care how you look at it. Everything is attached to everything else. All of that's tendons have to stretch. This one here, well, here's your back. That's pretty good. Yeah. Hold on. That's the back right there, and that's got to stretch.